Looking at BlackBerry, there's two ways to view it at the moment. Because earnings is coming up in the next few trading days, you could look at it with this upward trend support line right here, dating back since October of 2020, November 2020, January 2021, and then March of 2021. What I mean is acting as support and bouncing off when the stock comes down, bounce off as support. Yes, it broke through here. I'm going to elaborate more, but you could look at it with earnings, and yes, we broke underneath it again and then back testing and getting knocked down. So there's indication more downside. Again, going to elaborate more, but there is support at the $12.15, $12.18, essentially the low $12 price point. So not necessarily those prices exactly, but around that range. By the time earnings hits, we could bounce up to the upside, get back up above this upward trend support line, and go through all these resistance levels that I'm going to mention. But if you don't put earnings into the mix and you're disregarding it, which you could, I don't necessarily encourage it, but you could put it, because the thing is though, another reason too, before I say that, is if earnings is just okay, so I'm anticipating earnings to be a beat and just to be okay. It's not necessarily going to be amazing, but there is potential surprises that could happen. I cover all that in my last video. Highly encourage you to watch it. It'll pop up here as well. But if it's just okay, then I would say you would probably want to follow the graph. So back to what I was going to say, if you follow the graph and don't look at earnings coming up in the next few trading days, which is kind of strange, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you could, then the graph is indicating more downside. So that's the unfortunate part. I'm going to cover both scenarios in this video, and also I'm going to cover the resistance levels. So going up, what price points will cause us issues to pass them, and I'm going to cover support levels as well. So if we go down, what levels will help us bounce up to the upside or consolidate and then go back up to the upside. Hopefully you like the video, hopefully you find it helpful. Quick disclaimer before I continue though, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a professional. Everything I do share with you is just my opinion, it is not advice, so please do your own due diligence and research before buying and selling. Now I'm going to show the graph overall, the movement first, without earnings into consideration, and then I'm going to show with earnings and then the resistance and support levels right after that. So if you go to the 1 year chart, the 1 year chart, like I've been showing you in the past, this MAC line crossing over to negative, this indicates if it's bearish or bullish movement in the 1 year chart. So the 1 year movement, right now the 1 year movement is in the negative, it is bearish, so it is not optimistic and indicating more downside, unfortunately. The time to enter usually is when this line is slowing down and curving back up to the upside. That is usually a good time to enter, and also when these bars become lighter shades of red like you see right here, and at least getting smaller. So right now there's no indication, no curving up. The bars are getting stronger and bigger, so there's nothing really showing an indication of a slowdown at the moment. And if you look at these lines right here, these lines are not representation of the 1 year chart, they're more of the 3 month chart right here, and then the 5 year chart, but I'll show all those other charts as well. But if you could just visually imagine that they're clean lines in a way, and I'll explain more. So this line right here, this was 3 month chart, like I showed, unfortunately broke it, so there's that. And then this is the 5 year line chart, but right now in the 1 year chart, if you could visualize and see, back in March of 2020, bounced off it, then bounced off it here as well, technically bounced off it here, bounced off it here. So if you think it's going to come back down to this level, unfortunately we're going back to like the potentially like the 10, 9, $8.50 range. Now I'm not expecting $8.50 to be honest. I'm more expecting the $9.50, $9 price point, and I'll elaborate more on the 5 year chart. But if you look at these moving averages right here, these moving averages could act as support. So that's the thing. So keep in mind of that. And you could have support at the 10.50, support at the low $10 price point, so 10.18. And then if all fails, which is very impossible by the way. So what I'm anticipating, if you follow the graph into downside and all stuff, it's more going to be like this to replicate the same thing that we've seen in the past. Usually it rarely drops dramatically this fast. So if that does happen, by the time it's like mid-August, you're looking at like 9.50 or something by mid-August. But again, this is like way out, and if earnings doesn't do well, volume doesn't pick up, because volume has been dying. If you could see right here, volume spiked up and volume has been dying for the past few trading days, or a week or so kind of stuff. And if all fails, then we have major support with this upward trend support line, plus with this moving average right here at the $8.50 price point. Now, I'm not necessarily anticipating $8 again, but keep in mind that is possible again. So there's that. It would be a great entry point, I think, in my opinion, but anything is possible. Just keep that in mind. Now, if you go to the 5-year chart, this is why I said the line indicates more of a 5-year chart. So here's the same line dating back since March 2020. Right here, consolidated a bunch of times between July to August of 2020, then bounced off here in December of 2020, and then here's the May 21. May 21. So if you think this cycle is just going to keep repeating, so coming down, going up, coming down, yes, it broke through, false breakout, but went back up, came down, went back up, came down, and just keeping the cycle going, then you're anticipating, again, September, October, and all stuff. So if it comes down drastically, this is one of the reasons why I think 950 is going to be a low price point. So if it came down dramatically right here, bouncing off at 950, and then it coincides with support level right here where it dropped down, then 950 I think would hold. But again, if you look at the 1-year chart, anything is possible. Plus, if it keeps going down slanted this way, again, I would still think 950 would still be in play, but you're looking all the way until September, October, all that stuff. I'll keep you guys posted in the future videos, but this is just to know the projection further out. MACD line is unfortunately curving a little bit to the downside. You can see lighter shade of green right here going down. But the thing is, though, the reason why I'm saying you have to put earnings into the mix, even if it's just going to be okay, is you can see right here, MACD line. And by the way, so this is bullish right now, indicating an optimistic movement. But the problem is it's slowing down. So that's the thing. So it could go down. It doesn't necessarily mean it's just going to go straight up. But the thing is, though, it doesn't have to go down fully. You can see right here where it was going up and then slow down. You can see lighter shades of green plus curving down. So it would have probably crossed over to the negative and be bearish. But instead, if you still took a chance and entered right here, so this is where it's curving down and entered right here, you would have, or let's say you exited right here because you were anticipating it was going to cross over to the bearish movement and be not optimistic, and exited right here, and you're like, oh, you know what, there's more downside to come, you would have missed this massive run up. So just to be clear, these are all just like tools to use. They're not 100% accurate all the time, but just to be aware that there's more potential downside or upside. Yes, I know stock could go up and down, nobody knows, but I think these are helpful tools to know the indication of the movement sometimes here and there. Now, if you go to a 3-month chart, this is where I would include the earnings into the mix, is because we're near this upward trend support line right here. Yes, we broke through it just recently, but we're pretty close to it where we could bounce back up to the upside. Because the thing is, though, we did break through this downward trend resistance line dating back since June 8th, 2021. Did not pass it, and then we had a false breakout with the October 2020 upward trend support line right here. False breakout, spiked back up, broke through the resistance line, and then came down, went underneath again the support level, but we're bouncing off this resistance line as support. So there is some light, like hope kind of thing. And plus the MACD line for the 3-month chart is in the positive at the moment, but the 3-month chart and the 1-month charts and all that stuff, the MACD line moves relatively quickly. So I wouldn't put necessarily too much faith into it kind of stuff, but the 1-year chart and 5-year chart move a lot slower. So those ones indicate the movement a lot better in my opinion. But the thing is, though, the 1-year chart is showing a negative movement. The 5-year chart is positive at the moment, but it's curving a little bit down as I showed. Now, in terms of support, like I mentioned, $12.15, $12.18 is the range. So essentially the low $12 price point. Could act as support, so it's just to visually show. Anticipating that potentially what will happen is like just up and down all stuff, and then hopefully by the time earnings comes up, it'll bounce back up, come back up on the support level, maybe solidify that it's back up on support, bounce off it again, and then continue to the upside. Now, if that does happen, I'm going to cover the resistance levels at the moment. So the resistance levels that are going to cause us issues is essentially like the $13 price point, but $13.16 with this moving average right here. Then the next one is $13.50 range. It's showing $13.58 at the moment, but it depends on when we meet this moving average right here. Then the next level is the $13.90 range. To get up to the $14 price point is going to be a mission on its own, the low $14 price point. But then essentially the it was like the $14.25 from what I remember looking at the horizontal resistance, $14.40, $14.50, stuff like that. Yeah, 14, you could even see right here. So 14.20 right here, horizontally, you can see it went up, got knocked down, went up, got knocked down, and then yeah, I passed it, but then even when it came up here, it got knocked down at around 14.20, 14.27, 14.25, stuff like that. So that's going to be an issue a little bit too. Then the next level was about the 1450, like I mentioned. But getting up to $15. So $15 is a major task on its own. I think if earnings is good, we won't have issues there. The biggest one is the low $16 price point. So you could visually see here, but when I checked on the side, it was like 16. Hopefully I said 16, not 14, but it was like 1620, 1630 as well. But right here visually it shows horizontally, you could see 16. It's showing low $16 price point, went up to it, got knocked down. Yes, it broke through it, but you can see right here, small like nick where it got knocked down. Here as well, knocked down, and then almost here as well. So the $16 price point is going to be a major wall. After that, you have resistance at the $17.30 to $17.50, then the $17.80 range, and then which coincides with this downward trend resistance line as well. So this downward trend resistance line, technically take it with a grain of salt because there's only 2 touch points. So it's not necessarily a strong downward trend resistance line, but I'm including it because this is the peak of the January 2021 and then the peak of June 2021 right here, June 3rd to be exact, I guess. Hopefully that is exact. If you are thinking it's just going to spike up, what most likely will happen, unfortunately, even if it breaks through all these resistance relatively quickly. Actually, if it breaks through them relatively quickly, that means volume has increased like crazy. It's probably going to break through this resistance level that I'm going to mention. But if it does it kind of relatively slowly and like slopes up right here, at first it'll have issues around the 1750 if it meets it here, and then if it meets it here in June 25th, so the day after earnings, it'll be $17 price point. It's going to cause issues. So it's showing $16.99, but it's probably going to pass $16.99 and then get knocked back down as a false breakout. So just to visually show, let's just say it does this and all that stuff, and then it spikes up, it could still get knocked down as a false breakout. And yeah, that correlates with like $18. So 1830, 1850 is going to cause issues. 1817 as well when I checked last time. So I could see easily it could get knocked down as a false breakout. But keep in mind, if earnings is an amazing beat like I covered in the last video, then the stock can do really well. If it's just okay, then what's probably going to do is it consolidate at the low $12 price point for a while and then just follow the 1 year chart movement like I mentioned with the MACD line going downwards in terms of being bearish and not optimistic. Then it'll probably just consolidate like I said at a $12 price point and then just slowly, let me just visually show. So essentially it'll be like this constantly, and it'll probably like have spike ups and all stuff and then ultimately get down to the support level and then bounce up to the upside. But hopefully that does happen as worst case, and like we bounce off this upward trend support line and do a great job and all stuff. So hopefully you found the video helpful. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. I feel like I'm missing something, but if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. If you like this video and find it helpful, consider dropping a like. It does help on the channel, so thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. If you like videos like this or other financial videos or other stock videos that I post, consider subscribing so be notified when I do upload those videos. Thanks again for the awesome support, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.